Hey folks, Dr. Jaylis and Laura Janusik here with your listening tip number 4 for Listening for Leaders. And listening tip number 4 is that we listen both cognitively and behaviorally, which means we have to do something for both. So what do I mean by this? Listening is a brain-based activity, so that's what it means to listen cognitively. We listen with our brain. We're the only ones that know if we've actually listened or not. However, within communication, when we're face-to-face with someone or when we're on the telephone, we listen behaviorally. And what that means is that we look at the other's behaviors to see if they're listening to us. And we make assumptions about these things. If this person has eye contact with us, if they're nodding their head, if they're leaning in, then we assume they're listening. And when we assume they're listening, we often assume that they're taking the meaning the same way we intended. But we don't know that for sure. So remember, we hear with our ears, we listen with our brain. But we don't really know if someone is listening to us or not, because there's absolutely no research that supports that any of the listening behaviors are tied back to the listening comprehension. And to further complicate this, recognize that a lot of the nonverbal behaviors we use, for example, the amount of pause between speakers or even eye contact, is culturally dependent. So that means that different cultures have different social norms for the behaviors of listening. Now, you know this intuitively when I tell you this next part, because you have learned from a young age how to fake listen. Think about it. When you were in a classroom in school and the teacher was lecturing or the professor was lecturing and it was a topic that you weren't really interested in, you tried to look like you were listening, but you were really thinking about a lot of other things. So we didn't invent fake listening. Our generation didn't invent fake listening. Fake listening has been around for centuries and centuries and centuries. I am not telling you not to do any of those behaviors of listening, because those behaviors of listening are a social norm. So other people do expect that of you. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't follow the social norms. That's a very important thing to do. Make sure that your behaviors and your cognitions are in the same place. When you're speaking, you want to make sure the other person is listening to you. So there are a couple of things that you can do for both of these. So, and to complicate this even further, or maybe it doesn't complicate it, the fact that women and men have always been perceived to listen differently, there's absolutely no research that supports that anything that goes on in the brain is significantly different between males and females. We both listen and collect the same amount of information. However, what does appear to be different through the research, and the research supports this, is that women show more of the listening behaviors than men do. So women significantly establish more eye contact. Women significantly nod more. Women significantly use more facial expressions and so on, which is why women are perceived to be better listeners. But that's really the social norm of things. So what's your listening tip of the day, or what am I going to ask you to do? There are actually a couple of things going on here. First of all, when you are listening to someone, I want you to show them with your body, the social norms, and your mind, how you respond to them. So make sure that you respond on topic to them, or you show them that you really want to understand what they're saying. So if I hear you correctly, you're doing this, this, and that. Sounds like a lot, like a confirmation or a paraphrase. That's the second thing that I want you to do, which you just learned in tip number 3. And then the other thing that you can do to make sure that the other person has listened to you is to ask them what their takeaway from this conversation is going to be. And I promise that that is going to surprise you, because what they take away and what you want them to take away could very much be two different things. So that's your listening tip number 4, listening for leaders. Thanks so much. I'll see you in tip number 5.